Today, we have the amazing, the most wonderful and darling, beloved Katy Grabel is going to speak to us. And the title is The Magician's Assistant Jumps Out of the Box and Takes Over the Show. Because she wrote a book about her dad being a magician and being on the road with him. And she definitely got some of that artistic, dramatic flair from that education. She is an award-winning writer. And she has appeared in Writer's Digest. She writes women writers, women's stories, and new Millennium writings. She's the author of Ippy-winner, The Magician's Daughter, a memoir, which is a She Knows Book Club recommendation. Cool, right on, I didn't know that. Welcome, Katy, hooray, hooray.
Really good to be here. The title of this talk, The Magician's Assistant Jumps Out of a Box and takes over the show, right? So when I did that, partly I meant it to be funny. But the other part, I was thinking about it, and it's really metaphoric, because my father really tried to control the narrative all the time. He was always controlling the story. So for me to actually be up in front of other people, telling my story kind of feels like a big thing, and this book kind of feels like a big thing to me to finally be doing it. But anyway, I'm going to begin with a little bit of background. I know a lot of you already know this. My father had one really, really big dream. He wanted to be a big-time Las Vegas magician. And at that time, his magic show had been in storage 17 years. But he really wanted it. You know, earlier in his life, he'd had a big theatrical show. But anyway, it was a really big deal. I was 14 years old. He booked a tour because he hoped that tour would give him the connections for a casino booking. We had a crew, we had a truck. The tour was almost 4 months long. We had a 7-person crew, and we played 5 states. And that's basically what this book's about. So when I had to come up with this talk, and I really struggled with it. You know, what was I going to talk about? I knew I wanted it related to the book, but I didn't know how. Then finally, I remember what my sister said. She read the book, and she said, wow, you know, you really toned Dad down. And I did. He was a challenging father, but I didn't want the book to be about that. I wanted it to feel lighter. I wanted to portray him more as an eccentric person and a little endearing. So that's really what I did. But in truth, he was really talented. He was really smart. He was rather amazing, but he was also, he was narcissistic. He had a temper. He was compulsive. He always put the family second and his marriage second to the magic show. That's how it was. He loved the magic show. I won't go into a whole lot of detail about him because I feel like we all have challenging people in our lives, and it's up to us to grow through those relationships. So I won't say a whole lot about it, but I will say that when he died, my sister and I did not cry. He was 96 years old. We were like so relieved he was gone. Also, Ken, can I have your water? I am getting more. So, but I can say that relationship probably colored a lot of my life, right? So because he was such a big personality, we all kind of had to make ourselves a little small for him. So I talk about this in the book, I ended up having a kind of a fantasy world in my bedroom. You know, I'm 12, 13, 14, and I loved music. I loved rock and roll, and I would pretend, right? And that's what 14-year-olds do. They pretend they're famous, they're on stage and everything. But it was kind of like a safe place where I could be me, and I could like express that part of myself. But I could have had a guitar lesson, I could have had a dance class, I could have taken it out of the room, but I didn't. I was really content with keeping it in my room and not taking it out. So when he decides he wants to go into show, revitalize his career and hit it big in Vegas, I was really excited because I got to be on stage. And being a magician's assistant, let's face it, it's a lot easier than being a rock star. So I would, I loved it. I got to dress up, I got to be on stage. It was really, really fun. And also, I became a little bit more expansive. I began to see myself in a different way. I kind of got out of the Katy that was in her room, right? And I had a lot more confidence with myself. I thought I could do anything and be anyone, and something wonderful was going to happen to me, and I would do something really impressive and big with my life. So I think some of that was being 14. But I think some of it was being in a magic show. People tend to misunderstand magic shows. They think it's all about hoodwinking people, deceiving people, but I can honestly say that it's not really about that. If a magician is really good, it's an invitation for the audience to step out of a narrow view of the world and see the potentiality in everything. The other thing, I was backstage. I did see all the mechanical workings of the magic show, and everything felt imbued with magic, everything. Backstage, I would see all the contraptions, right? That all the little doors and all the little hiding places and all the boxes. My father made a piano rise, and it was a big mechanical apparatus attached to the piano that would be behind the backdrop that would do it. I would see that, the fake women's feet, all the weird little gadgets, the wire lady, all this stuff. So I would see all that. But because there was so much secrecy around everything, it all had this forbidden, arcane kind of feel to it. And also, because I was privy to it, it kind of gave me this sense of power I didn't have before. Like, when I say this next thing, I'm being pretty poetic, but because I had access to it, it was kind of like I had access to all the secrets of the universe. But anyway, so it was really fun. I got to be a different Katy there. But when the magic show ended, and it did end after that tour, I fell into my spell of forgetting. And I just forgot everything. I was an adolescent, I was a young adult, I was an adult. And I went back to the old Katy, right? Really insecure, hiding, really quiet, didn't have a lot of confidence. And I would aspire for really big careers. I wanted to do something big and fancy with my life. And I remember one of them was, I wanted to be a psychologist of a late night call-in radio show, and people would call me up with their problems and I would solve them. But anyway, so these big dreams would last about 2 to 3 weeks. Then I would talk myself out of it. I'd be like, I can't do that. And the whole thing would fall apart. And so I had a real big, inner world that was really rich, but in my outer world, which was never ever in sync to my inner world. So anyway, so this went on for a while, and so there was a lot of other things going on too. I was really quiet in a classroom and in a social situation. I was always the quietest person, always. And then also, my jobs tended to be, pretty undemanding, pretty safe. I was a newspaper reporter for a while, and that was really fun, but I didn't do that for very long. I didn't have a whole bunch of friends. I tended to, I didn't really have a home either. I was moving around a lot. I didn't have a community. And when I would think back to the magic show, I would think, wow, Katy, that young Katy was really naive. I didn't like her very much. And I would think back to my mom. I didn't consider my mother a role model because she just seemed to be helping my father do whatever he wanted to do, right? And also my dad and I weren't really getting along. He was pretty critical of my life. I would see him, but I wouldn't really engage with him. I just shut him out as much as I could. I negated him as much as I could from my life. So I was pretty unhappy, pretty lost. My parents, I was in my mid-30s. My parents had scaled down the big magic show to something they could fit in their trunk. And they were playing community colleges. They played the South, the Southwest, California, Pacific Northwest, Utah, and they were, they would go on tour for a while, then stop. And so I was on a road trip. He said, you should stop by and see the show. I had not seen the magic show since I was 14. I came in late, I sat in the back. Okay, so when I came in, when I heard the patter, I saw all the old props, I heard the music, all the old routines, I couldn't believe it. I was catapulted back. And 14-year-old Katy was right there with all her hopefulness. And it was almost like a visceral experience. Like, oh my God, it was just like, and I remembered her and how happy she was and how hopeful she was with her life and all the, how much confidence she had. The other thing when I saw the old magic show was, I really saw my parents objectively, and I think, wow, they are really unusual. I mean, what parents do this? And they were good looking and they were charismatic, and my father was actually really funny on stage. The audience was really loving him. And I just thought, oh my God, this is really unusual. So I started getting cold chills, and I know why, because I knew I had to write about it. I had to write about it. And it wasn't such a far-fetched notion. I had been a newspaper reporter, I loved reading, I loved writing, and I knew it, I could feel it inside. And even though I'd come up with big ideas, big dreams, and nothing would ever happen, this felt really like I was gonna do this. So the first thing I did was I kept a journal on the road, and some of these journal entries are in here. First thing I did, I reread my journals from the road. I filled up 200-page notebooks with my musings of being on the road. The other thing, I wrote down every single thing I could remember. I also started reading biographies about old-time illusionists from the 1900s. Now, I want to say there's a difference between a magician and an illusionist. A magician tends just to have a smaller show. An illusionist tends to have a crew. They have, it's more theatrical, and they do, the big stuff, like floating a lady. But they also do small routines, too. So I wanted to read about illusionists because I felt like that was really what he loved. There was something in there that made him want to do what he wanted to do. And I had to understand it, like what was the appeal? What was it? And all these old magicians were kind of from his generation. They might have been magicians that he might have aspired to have been when he was younger. So I read about the great Raymond, the great Carter. I read about Harry Keller, Harry Thurston, Howard Thurston, Dante, and Blackstone. So I read about all of them. I wanted to know. The other thing I did, I started just spending time with my parents and my father, really asking them questions about how they got the magic show together. And, how did they come up with these routines? And, like, how did they pull it all together? And so it was good. I spent a lot of time with them, talking to them. And so this is what I learned. So how these days they talk about manifesting, right? There's seminars, there's books, there's workshops. How do you manifest the life you want? Well, I realized in talking to him and really thinking back to my childhood that he had been doing that his whole life. It was just in him. He had confidence. He knew he could do whatever he needed to do, and he just did it. He was really big with lists. He would make out a list and then do everything every day on that list. And if it wasn't done, he added it to the next day's list. So immobilizing the magic show after 17 years in storage was a big task, and I was witness to it. It took about 1.5 years. So the magic show is basically a bunch of equipment in old crates in the garage and in a trailer, and he breathed life into the whole thing again and brought it to the stage and made it come alive to all these people. So what I learned was that, he had been modeling that to me my whole life. Having that confidence, having that conviction in yourself. And he didn't just show it to me, he didn't just tell me, he showed it to me, which we know is a lot more powerful. But I was pretty angry at him. I didn't think he could offer me anything. So I had to realize, I blocked him out so much, but I realized that I needed to be grateful and be inspired. And also, he is my blood father. I realized that I have a lot of him in me. You know, like he's probably out of 2 daughters, I was the one more like him. And so I had to see myself in him. So when the tour ended, you know, we didn't make it to Vegas. Something else happened, but it wasn't Vegas. So the end of the magic show was harder for me because I just loved it. You know, it was so much fun. You know, I got to dress up, I got to be on stage, I got to hand him things on stage and stuff. It was really fun. But I invested a lot of my emotional life into this big dream he had. And so it felt really unfair to me. Like, why didn't this happen? So I ended up, it made me kind of pessimistic. And I realized that it really did impact me and my feelings and my attitudes about, can we really make the things we want in life happen? Can we really do that? It put a lot of doubt in me because I had seen how hard he had worked, the mobilization, and the being on the road, and all the stuff that happened, all the troubles we had on the road. So it really discouraged me. And I remember being in college, and people would tell me, you know, things they wanted to do. And I would point out all the ways that wouldn't happen. You know, I was just like, point out like, well, you know, this, and this, and this. No. Okay, but what I learned was that, you know, talking to my father and everything, I realized he did kind of get what he wanted. You know, he just didn't get it how he thought he would. Basically, what he wanted was attention. He wanted notoriety. He wanted some respect from his peers. He wanted a place in the history of professional magic. That's really what he wanted. He did get that. And I won't go into too much detail, but later on in life, he ended up regenerating his career. He became somewhat of a celebrity in some circles of magic. He did that. And in his last magic show, he was 86 years old. So it did happen to him. But, you know, this is kind of how the universe works, right? We come up with the what we want, and the universe comes up with the how. So he was able to stay focused on what he wanted, but stay open to how he might get it. And that's what I learned, talking to him and really looking at his life. I realized, yeah, you know, and isn't that the universe will support us, but we have to stay focused and believe in ourselves, and then stay open and flexible to how we might get it. Now, my mother, spending time with my mother, what I realized was that she was stronger, more confident, and happier than my father. And you know what it was my father was always looking outside for validation, right? The applause, an audience, you know, he was always looking for that. My mother validated herself. She knew who she was. She did not need that. And, you know, she married an entertainer, but she never wanted to be on stage. It just happened to be what my father did for a living. So, you know, she had to, so that's, so thinking back, he was really quite helpless without her. He couldn't do the magic show without her, even the family business, you know, she did all the books. So she had a lot of secret power in the relationship. But she was comfortable enough with herself that she could support him and not feel threatened by it. So what I learned, you know, I really had to question this whole desire I had to do something big and impressive with my life. I realized, like, what was that about? And I realized I didn't really want that. I just wanted to feel more integrated between my inside self and my outside self, and just feel more authentic. That's really what I wanted. So I started writing the book, and the first drafts, I can say, were pretty critical of my father. It's almost like I would write long lyrical passages about, you know, how messed up he was. But then, you know, I had to write it before I could let it go. Then I was able to let it go. But anyway, I started taking it to a writing class, and everybody really liked it. And I thought, oh my gosh, I am on the brink of a literary career here. But then, you know, I couldn't finish it. I could not finish it. And I know a lot of you know this, but, you know, I ended up revealing a lot of his tricks and illusions, right, in the book. But also, he was very protective of his image. He didn't want other magicians knowing that he had aspired so high as to think he could play Las Vegas. And if it hadn't worked out, he didn't want people knowing. And I couldn't write the book he wanted me to write. So, but by that time, I could let it go. I had more value in my relationship with my father. I valued it more. I was more mature. Had more compassion for him, for me, and I just willingly let it go. So around that time is when I began visiting New Mexico. And I was kind of, it was in my late 30s, early 40s. I was kind of on the threshold of doing things a new way. I was really kind of stepping into my personal power, knowing I'm responsible for doing what I wanted to do. And that, also I will say that in New Mexico, I've been able to be someone I didn't think I could be, and I've been able to do things I didn't think I could do. So I'm gonna, we all know, I couldn't find the exact quote, but there's a saying, there's a phrase, it says something like this. If you don't like something in your life or in some situation, then tell yourself a different story about it. I kind of feel like I did that. Writing the book really gave me an opportunity to go back in time and re-remember things in a different way. So my father, had been so emotionally charged, but, he kind of became someone with good qualities and bad qualities, and I can see all of him now. Also, my mother, she always kind of struck me as kind of unassertive, kind of passive, but I can see now that she was really grounded in, really powerful and grounded in her own way, and that she's someone I could be inspired by. And also it helped me rethink about our dreams and how we make them happen, and knowing that I'm responsible. So the book allowed me to transmute a lot of negative feelings. So there's this quote: human memory is malleable, not concrete. You remember the last time you remembered a thing, not the thing itself. Boy, I would say that's really true. Memory is really subjective. It's not a direct recording, and I really feel like I reconstructed a lot of the past, and I don't feel like that I'm in denial about anything, but I feel like I created different memories, and I focused on different things. So I really can't say enough about how powerful, I know you all know this, really how powerful the arts are for transmuting our difficult experiences, how healing it is. There's painting, there's sculpture, there's writing, there's songwriting, there's so much. And now when you do that, I feel like when I really had to sort of immerse myself in the difficulties, that it became something else. It wasn't based in the past, but it became something based in the present and the future. Okay, I've had to think a lot about what real magic is, right? So I looked it up in the dictionary. Real magic is supernatural things that happen without a cause. So I can honestly say, growing up, that was not what magic was. Magic was really demanding. Magic took away my father's attention, his time, it obsessed him. Magic was all the equipment in the garage. That was magic. Magic was just, really, it was just, and it put a lot of stress on my parents' marriage. So when I think about it, I think about this quote from Arthur Clarke. He's a sci-fi writer. Magic is just science we haven't figured out yet. So we all know, right, all the studies that have been done on consciousness on the quantum field, right? The power of our beliefs and our intentions, they really are proving that it creates form and matter, right? And also, they're doing tests on the paranormal about, trying to find a scientific reason for that. So it kind of asks the question, is it still magic if we know how it's done? Is it still magic if there's a scientific reason for it? So a part of me says yes, and a part of me says no. I don't like that at all. I like to think of magic as a feeling of awe and wonder. Anything that can make us feel awe and wonder. And think of a lightning storm on the mesa, think of a rainbow on the mesa. When you drop the science of it, you have to admit it's pretty amazing. Also, feelings of being connected to something larger, inspiring acts of kindness, art and music can all have that magical feeling, that awe and wonder. Feelings of oneness, seeing a flower, synchronicities have that feeling of magic. Something that might feel divine or might feel like grace feels like magic. Sometimes for me, it's when something really wonderful happens that feels unexpected. So when I think back to where I was and where I am now, I think, wow, I mean, I know that there's a big journey that happened in between. But sometimes I think about it and it just feels so magical to be here right now, telling my story in front of all of you, to be part of this great community here, to actually have published my book that I'm so excited about, and also to be going here, spending time in Mexico. It all feels really magical to me. So thank you very much.
Any last questions?
Okay.
I'll start. So Katy, and by the way, I see similarities between your family and mine, so
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Let's use your father for example. Is the
Okay.
journey more important than the goal?
Okay, I need a little bit more
The
specific.
journey meaning, in other words, you have a goal in life.
Yeah.
Is getting to that goal, is that more important?
Oh, yeah.
The
Well, of course, it's the journey, right? So are you thinking about the magic show?
We can use that as an
Okay.
example.
Oh, yeah, it's the journey. I mean, now, I can think back now, it was all about the tour. It really wasn't about what was gonna happen at the end. Just we had expectations, but yeah, definitely, it's always the journey.
Katie,
Yeah,
I'd just like to make a comment. I met you many years ago in Alicia Hanlon's
Mhm.
religious science
yeah,
Zoom class.
yeah.
And I think you were the shyest person there. I don't remember you ever saying anything.
Yeah.
But saying that, I just have to say now, my goodness, what a beautiful young woman that is coming to herself.
Yeah, at age 62.
I don't think
Never too
anything is never too late. I'm 86 and I didn't do it until recently.
Yeah.
But anyhow, but you're a very special person.
Thank you.
You've really committed yourself
Thank
and
you.
blossomed and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, in the back?
Yeah, wonderful presentation and touching. But I haven't read your book yet. What genre did you choose? Is it
It's a memoir.
prose, poetry?
Memoir.
Memoir,
Mhm.
memoir.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
true story. I thought about making it fiction, but I think some of the power was just being a true story. Yeah.
And what's the title?
The Magician's Daughter, a Memoir. And I couldn't, actually there's a few other books with that called The Magician's Daughter. I really didn't know what else to call it, so that's it.
It was a
Yeah,
great
we did.
picture you got for the cover too.
Thank you. I had some help. In the back?
What's next?
I think something small, shorter. I would love short stories and I would love personal essays. I love that form. It'd be great.
What was the last name?
Personal essays and short stories.
I have a
Yeah.
question, Katie.
Yeah.
Did they have a spiritual outlook?
No, they didn't.
Do you feel like the magic that you're talking about now, the more mystical magic, has the connection between the show and how you perceive magic informed your spiritual life? Because I know you've helped with you've run the prayer circle in the
Yeah,
Dome for years,
that's right,
and
yeah.
I know it's important to
Yeah.
you.
I think because of this thing about magic in the house, I would say my sister would agree, we both went on a quest in the metaphysics. Because we wanted to understand, I think innately, we wanted to find our own magic. Because, obviously, it just didn't feel, it was really different in the house. So yeah, it did. Because we were always searching for that, always searching. So,
You were talking about when science can explain it, is it magic anymore?
Yeah.
And part of you said no, and part of you said yes.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that?
I don't know. Well, I mean, because it's just, I don't know if I can elaborate more. I just feel like I like this idea of just not knowing. And, you know, that was a definition of magic. When it seems to happen without a cause, it's just something like really great that happens. And I love that feeling. And I love that. And so I think it's good, though, that we're doing all this research, but I think there's something innate in us that wants to believe in the other kind of magic.
Maybe because we never do arrive at the full truth.
Yeah.
When science explains something, there's always more that we
Yeah.
still don't know.
Yeah.
So we're looking for
Oh,
that
yeah.
mystery.
Yeah, that mystery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, anybody else?
So what career did you finally settle on when you came?
Well, I
to
did a
your
bunch
own?
of stuff. I did, you know, nothing, I was a teacher. I was, I was I had a vacation rental for a while. I did this computer stuff for a while. I was a waitress for a long time. What else? And I was a newspaper reporter. I was kind of like, you know, I just did a bunch of stuff.
Sounds like you were very resourceful.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Anybody else? No?
Why don't you do magic?
Because, okay, good question. So I've learned that to want to learn a magic trick, it takes a real dedication. Sleight of hand takes a long time. You have to really want to do it inside. To be a magician is something inside you. It's like, you know, any artist, right? Sometimes painters are like that. It's inside you. You're just born with it. And I just wasn't born with it. It was other things I wanted to do. So, okay, Terry.
When I was reading your book, of course, it took me back to myself being 13 or 14, shy as well.
Yeah.
So if you were having so much fun in your bedroom playing rock star, but outwardly, socially, you were very quiet, and your father was, well, who he was, no one was really doing anything within your family to help you build up your own self-confidence.
Right.
How at that age what did you find inside that really pushed you enough to be able to go out on that stage and do that? I could not have done that at that age. What was in there?
Well, you know, that was my parents' old career. And I'd seen all the old photos. And I think because they were doing it, you know, it sort of felt a little safe. You know, it wasn't like I was by myself. I was part of this whole crew of people.
Right.
And I would have a little thing I would do on stage and then I'd turn around. You know, it was okay. It was a safe place.
Safe.
Yeah.
Did you have one of those cute little costumes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
And you still have the hat. You popped
Yes,
out.
I saw, you know, I jumped out of a big gold top hat. And that was like my moment in the spotlight, right? And I ended up with that hat. It's in the garage. And I'm like, what am I gonna do with this hat? And I thought, well, I could make it a coffee table. I could, like, you know, put a piece of beveled glass on top. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen to that hat. I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.